In this weird world of professional wrestling, get everything right and you'll be lucky to get a pat on the back. I mean, that's your job after all. But get one thing seriously wrong, and who knows how bad it can get. Your face might even explode, and there's sadly a good chance the rest of the match will be forever forgotten or ruined by that one mistake. So I am Gareth, this is What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 wrestling matches ruined by one botch. Number 10, Billy Kidman vs. Steven Regal, WCW Nitro 1999. They don't call it high risk without good reason, folks. Billy Kidman's shooting star press was never the most graceful of top rope attacks, but he did manage to hit it more often than not. Kidman carved himself out a pretty handy niche as a staple of WCW's cruiserweight division. WCW being WCW, it didn't keep its junior heavyweights tied together at the waist, meaning fans were frequently treated to cross-division dream matches like La Parka vs. Booker T, Saturn vs. Psychosis, and this beauty, Steven Regal vs. Billy Kidman. Kidman had the match won, believe it or not, and Regal was in a prone position as the former Flock member took to the ropes with shooting stars in his eyes. Alas, the top rope got in Kidman's way on the way down though, and his body made contact with the edge of the turnbuckle. Yikes. Unsurprisingly, the entire match was rendered obsolete in the face of a botched shooting star press. Kidman picked up the win after an inside cradle, but there was only ever going to be one focus of the conversation in the moments afterwards. But at least Kidman didn't crush Regal's face with his knees, right? That's something. Protected that pretty mug. Number 9, Roman Reigns vs. Kevin Owens, WWE Royal Rumble 2021. Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns have fantastic chemistry. They always have, they always will. The two had been feuding for a couple of months coming into the 2021 Royal Rumble, a beef that came to a head in a last man standing match. And for the first 20 minutes or so, this was excellent stuff. Further proof of the excellent understanding that these two professionals have. Everything was building to a thrilling climax, albeit one clouded in the usual nonsense that surrounds a WWE last man standing match. Then, the handcuffs. Oh, the handcuffs. The match was fine when it was Reigns and Owens falling off things, but the introduction of the handcuffs and the difficulty Paul Heyman had in unlocking them rendered all of that work useless. A referee just stopping the count was the crappy cherry on what had been a really enjoyable cake up to that point. And to round things off, Reigns just slapped a choke on Owens and, well, that was that. Yay. Now, it might be harsh to say the match was completely ruined by the botched finish, but, well, the match was ruined by the botched finish, so there. Now, what match do you feel is unfairly forgotten about or just overshadowed by one bad moment? Let me know in the comments down below. Number 8, The Great Khali and Natalya vs. Big E and AJ Lee, WWE Raw 2013. So The Great Khali is always good for a botch, right? Shockingly though, the Punjabi Nightmare actually had nothing to do with the mangled finish of this match. Natalya locked AJ Lee in the sharpshooter and Lee tapped frantically. A fairly standard finish, except for the fact Natalya had relinquished the hold. It is difficult to say that the botch ruined the match per se, but it did plenty of damage to any hope of a better presentation of WWE's women, for a short while at least. Everyone came out of the match looking like a bit of a fool really, which is less than ideal considering the then fledgling careers of Lee and Big E. Until then, the match had been more than serviceable, which should be considered a triumph, you know, considering Khali was involved and all that. Things did not get any better after the fact, as Natalya waited for the referee to raise her hand, only for the official to tell Natty that she needed to reapply the hold and get AJ to submit all over again. Pretty good editing in the WWE video of it though, for sure. You'd never know. Number 7, Stone Cold Steve Austin vs. Owen Hart, WWE SummerSlam 1997. The use of the word ruined is a divisive one. This has gone down in history as one of the most important and memorable matches of all time, but that was nothing to do with the match itself. That memory is almost exclusively based on the near tragic circumstances of the ending, and the series of events it set in motion that eventually made Stone Cold Steve Austin the biggest star in wrestling. It also ensured his early retirement, you know, before his Mania 38 return, of course. Did the botch ruin the match? Well, it ruined Austin's neck, that's for sure. Owen Hart and Steve Austin were at the peak of their powers in 1997. Two men with the world at their feet, making the WWE Intercontinental Championship feel like a bit of a big deal. Their SummerSlam SummerSlam 1997 title match was well on its way to becoming an all-time classic when Hart hit Austin with that piledriver, stopping time and the match simultaneously. Ever the professional, aside from the slightly unprofessional execution of the piledriver just moments earlier, Hart stalled for time as Austin desperately clung onto whatever sentience he had, eventually working towards the weakest roll-up in wrestling history and a victory for the stricken babyface. All memory of the match itself was obliterated in a botch that would ring loud through pro wrestling history. Nobody remembers the intensity of the match, only the career-changing piledriver. Number 6, WWE Royal Rumble 2005 match. The greatest comedy of errors in WWE history? Yeah, quite possibly. The finish of the 2005 Royal Rumble should have been simple, but instead it gave fans some of the most hilarious visuals in pro wrestling history. Now, you usually don't want to wish ill on anyone, but Vince McMahon tearing both of his quads as he desperately runs down to the ring to save the day, before hilariously having to dictate everything from a sitting position? Yeah, you can feed that into my veins. Until the unfortunate botch that saw Batista and John Cena hit the floor at the exact same time. I mean, what are the odds? The 2005 Royal Rumble was memorable only for a bunch of grizzled veterans bullying Daniel Puder and Gene Snitsky attempting to murder Paul London via decapitation. The rest of the Rumble was fine enough. A standard battle royal that featured a pretty great Edge performance and workmanlike efforts from the likes of Jericho, Ray, Benoit, and Eddie. The botch changed all of that though. In a parallel world, Batista dumped Cena over the top and everything after the show goes as it did. But that world has McMahon's exploding legs cruelly taken away from it. When booking the Royal Rumble, the very last thing you want is for the finish to be botched, right? Saying that, Asuka kicking thin air so violently it caused Nikki Bella to fall off the apron at the 2018 Royal Rumble probably counts as well, no? Yeah, you forgot about that one, didn't you? If you are enjoying this botched-filled list, then hit that subscribe button down below and you'll get even more fantastic What Culture Wrestling videos absolutely every day. Number 5, London and Kendrick versus Taylor and Regal versus MNM versus the Hardy Boys. WWE Armageddon 2006. So before we get into the whole Joey Mercury's face explodes thing, how awesome does that match look on paper? Let me break it down. The Hardy Boys are obviously one of the most popular teams in the history of pro wrestling, while London and Kendrick were basically a way more athletic and dynamic version of the two, just a bit less popular. M&M were, for a while, WWE's only decent tag team, and Taylor and Regal brought thug-nosed British grit to the table with a plum. But yeah, Joey Mercury's face exploded, and everything else fell apart from there. It is quite difficult to focus entirely on a plunder match when one of your colleagues is gushing blood from his face, one presumes. This was a ladder match, and all it took was one convoluted spot to go slightly wrong for Mercury's face to be in peril, by which I mean obliterated. Look, you know something is bad when John Morrison describes taking a ladder full pelt in the throat as lucky. What should and could have been an all-time great WWE tag team ladder match became an exercise in damage limitation, as well as, for all intents and purposes, the end of Joey Mercury's in-ring career. Number 4, Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair, WrestleMania 35. You could probably make a convincing argument that WWE botched this match before the bell even rang. Like, why was Charlotte Flair involved? The entire wrestling world wanted this to be a major singles match between Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey. Yet 2,435-time women's champion Flair was just shunted in there for reasons. For shame, WWE booking team, for shame. And if that wasn't bad enough, the first women's match to main event WrestleMania ended with a botch, with a 3 count that should never have happened, and an exhausted crowd with the wind knocked well and truly out of their sails. Poor Rod Zapata too. Stuck between a rock and a hard place, Zapata counted Rousey's shoulders to the mat despite one of those shoulders being nowhere near the aforementioned mat. Zapata claimed that Rousey was in severe pain due to a broken hand and needed to finish the match, but that still doesn't exactly make this botched finish okay. Will Becky and Ronda ever get a chance to right this wrong in the future? Well, with the latter not even signed with them currently, you would not bet on it. Number 3, Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio, WWE SummerSlam 2005. What is it with WWE and putting together convoluted storylines for what should be simple feuds? Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio Mysterio were WWE Tag Team Champions. But a desire to see who was the best led to a match at WrestleMania 21. That match was hampered by a poor choice of mask on Mysterio's part, but it didn't seem to hinder Rey too much as he eventually got the win. And that set in motion Eddie's downward spiral, as professional jealousy became too much for Latino heat to handle. But why, oh why, did Dominic need to be brought into it all? He didn't, obviously, but the feud climaxed in a ladder match for custody of a young, dirty Dom. Now, the ridiculous stipulation was easy enough to ignore for the most part, as Eddie and Rey went to work and put on a tremendous match. One more suited to the WWE world than their more famous matches in WCW. Everything was going swimmingly until Eddie found himself with a clear run for the briefcase. This wasn't supposed to be the finish, as Eddie's wife Vicky should have been out there to push her beau off the ladder, doing the right thing at the right time. But unfortunately for the match, Vicky was in the wrong place at this right time. She was nowhere to be seen. Rey eventually pulled Eddie down after what felt like an age, and the effing and jeffing that subsequently flowed from the mouth of Eddie Guerrero spoke for itself. Latino heat indeed. Vicky eventually sauntered out 3 minutes later as the spot was reprised, but the cat was out of the bag. Number 2, Hulk Hogan versus Sting, WCW Starrcade 1997. WCW, what a mess you were. No episode of Monday Nitro or monthly pay-per-view seemed to pass without one major botch or another, and they don't come much bigger than a botched finish in what should have been the biggest match in company history. If the finish to Sting versus Hulk Hogan at Starrcade 97 had gone as planned, then who knows what the current wrestling landscape might look like. Now sure, WCW would have surely put itself out of business eventually, but what would WWE look like? Who knows? But we all know what should have happened here, and we all know what happened. Hulk Hogan should have been awarded the victory thanks to a fast count by dastardly NWO referee Nick Patrick, only for Bret Hart to mark his debut by restarting the match, allowing Sting to win via submission. The so-billed match of the century should have ended with Sting as WCW World Heavyweight Champion and the NWO done for. Alas, Nick Patrick forgot to count slow, and the whole thing just fell apart in trademark WCW style because Hulk Hogan was an egomaniac. No change there then. Number 1, The Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar, WWE WrestleMania 30. Most of the botches on this list were major mess-ups. Big-time botches that changed the atmosphere in the arena and rendered the rest of the match almost irrelevant. But the most consequential botch in modern wrestling history was the opposite. A seemingly innocuous moment that led to what should have been the most monumental moment becoming a weird, underwhelming, damp squib of an affair. Look, it isn't fair to say the end of the streak was botched, but that match was definitely ruined by a moment that didn't go to plan. Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 30 wasn't necessarily destined to be a classic, but it would have been a whole lot better if Undertaker didn't pick up a concussion some 5 minutes into the match. As the two were grappling on the outside, Brock's strength got the better of him, and he somehow managed to tip over the dead man like some sort of great oak. Taker's head was left unprotected as it smacked the ringside mat, rendering him largely useless through the rest of the match. The plan was obviously not for Undertaker to get a concussion 5 minutes in, so this definitely goes down as a monumental botch that did more to ruin the match in question than anything else on this list. The end of the streak should have been truly epic, but it was just a bit weird and surreal in the end. Oh, to go back in time. But unless you have a time machine, we can't. So instead, stay in the present and watch some more What Culture Wrestling videos, like this 10 weapon fails that totally ruined wrestling matches one. Oh, it's a goodie. Have fun.